Hey blood sugar champions! Today we're going to talk about 10 blood sugar hacks that your doctor doesn't know. I've lived with diabetes for 35 years and these hacks helped me bring my average blood sugar from 350 all the way to 110. And my HbA1c went from 13.3% all the way to 5.5%, which was the result I got during my last HbA1c test. Before we dive in, remember, I'm not a doctor. Always consult your medical professional for any kind of medical advice. Starting with blood sugar hack number 10 that your doctor probably didn't tell you about. You know, doctors are fantastic at many things, but they're not nutritionists. They might not fully understand how different foods impact not only your blood sugar, but also your insulin sensitivity. No matter if you live with type 1, type 2, prediabetes, or any other form of diabetes, or even if you're a completely healthy person, we all have one thing in common. Whenever we eat carbs, our blood sugar goes up. It's completely natural. But did you know that not all carbs are created the same? Different carbs are doing different things to our blood sugar. I'm talking good carbs and bad carbs. Take raspberries and oranges for instance. A small portion of each has exactly 12 grams. They're both healthy, but one of these two options is better for your blood sugar. Do you know which one? Yes, it's raspberries. But wait, so how can we tell which foods are good and which foods are bad when it comes to blood sugar spikes? Well, we need to look at something called glycemic index. In our example, average raspberries have a glycemic index of 24, while an average orange has a glycemic index or GI of 35. Foods that rank lower on the GI scale, like the raspberries we talked about, spike blood sugar slower than the foods who rank higher on the GI scale. So my hack number 10 is pick foods with lower glycemic index whenever you can. Now please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying oranges are bad for you and you should never eat them again. Trust me, there are much worse things you can eat than oranges. What I am saying is that you might want to create a little cheat sheet with GIs of the foods that you eat most often. Put it on your fridge or save it on your phone. This kind of cheat sheet might help you choose the better carbs with lower GI next time you're about to eat a snack or go grocery shopping. Now, if you like to eat foods with high GI like potatoes, pasta or bread, don't worry, there are some advanced hacks you can do to still be able to eat those and not have your blood sugar spike too fast. I'm gonna talk about these advanced hacks a bit later, so keep watching. Here comes another blood sugar hack that your doctor probably didn't mention to you. This one also helps you fight against those nasty blood sugar spikes after you eat a meal, but it also, on top of that, helps you fight insulin resistance. If you keep doing this hack, your body will become more insulin sensitive and it will be able to use insulin more effectively. So you will need less insulin at the end of the day. It works literally for everyone. Now, the food that you eat plays a major role in how insulin sensitive you will be. And again, when it comes to insulin sensitivity, we have good foods and bad foods. Take an instant cereal versus a homemade oatmeal made from whole grain steel-cut oats and some fresh fruit. If you ate one of these meals for breakfast every morning for a few years, the instant cereal would probably make you more insulin resistant, while the homemade oatmeal would probably make you more insulin sensitive. So my hack number 9 is pick whole foods or foods that are minimally processed whenever you can. An easy way to do it is simply buy foods that you can find in the store in the same form that you would find them in nature. And for any packaged food, read the ingredient list on the food label. If there are too many ingredients, including chemicals and any words you don't recognize, that food is probably ultra processed and I would stay away from it. Another powerful blood sugar hack your doctor probably doesn't know: how to count carbs and how to do it right. Sure, your doctor might have dropped that "watch those carbs bump" on you, or even tell you how many carbs a day you should eat. But did they actually teach you how to properly count carbs? Probably not, and that's a shame because knowing exactly how many carbs you eat makes the blood sugar game so much easier, especially if you are an insulin-dependent diabetic. So let me show you how to do it right. This is a food label that I found on a can of chickpeas. You can see that one serving of this chickpeas has 16 grams of total carbohydrates. But that's not where our carb counting ends. One serving of these chickpeas also has 5 grams of fiber, and fiber is a type of carbohydrate that your body can't digest, so it does not affect your blood sugar levels. And that's why I will go ahead and subtract these 5 grams of fiber from the total carbohydrates. This will get us to 11 grams of net carbohydrates per serving, which is what we really care about. Now you see that the serving size noted on the food label is 130 grams, which is about half a cup. So next thing we need to consider is, are we really gonna eat half a cup of this chickpea, or are we maybe gonna eat a whole cup? If we're gonna eat a whole cup, we need to multiply 11 net carbs by 2, which gets us to 22 net carbs. You see, carb counting is not that straightforward, and sometimes you need to do a bit of calculation. Now, what if your food is not packaged and there is no food label? What should you do? Well, there is one great tool that I really like to use, and that's a website called MyFitnessPal. This site has a database of countless food items, and I'll put a link to it down below for you. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the only way to manage your blood sugars is to go low carb. Absolutely not. Many people are on a low carb diet and it works great for them, but it's definitely not the only way to manage your diabetes well, because there are many hacks to keep your blood sugar low while still eating lots of carbs. So moving on to blood sugar hack number 7. My doctor never mentioned this one to me, but it helps me so much to keep my blood sugar in the ideal range more often. To be able to do this hack, you need to divide your day into 2 time windows. One during which you eat and one during which you don't eat. Your fasting window can be 12 hours, 18 hours, or 24 hours, which is what I've been doing lately. I eat my dinner at 6 p.m. and I don't eat anything until the dinner on the next day, again at 6 p.m. So hack number 7 is time-restricted eating, aka intermittent fasting. Now, of course, I don't do this every day, and I'm not saying you absolutely need to do this, but I want to give you 3 reasons why I am doing it and why it works for me. Number 1, I noticed that fasting in general can help improve my insulin sensitivity. Number 2, during the time when I don't eat, my blood sugar don't spike, and so it's much easier for me to keep my blood sugar in the ideal range without any hiccups a lot more time. And number 3, because I'm an insulin dependent type 1 diabetic, I need to administer basal insulin every day. In theory, if my basal insulin dose is correct, my blood sugar during that 24-hour fast should be pretty much straight line. And if it's not straight line during those 24 hours, it shows me that maybe I need to tweak my basal insulin a little bit. Now, if you haven't done intermittent fasting yet and want to give it a try, please do your own research and consult a healthcare professional before you get started. Don't go crazy too fast just because I told you I do it, okay? Now, moving on to another blood sugar hack your doctor probably didn't mention to you. It's the carbs we already talked about that usually steal the spotlight. But there is another component of your meal that has quite an impact on your blood sugar levels, and that's protein. You can find protein in things like meat or legumes, and it is an essential nutrient for muscle building and overall health. But did you know that protein does raise blood sugar? It really does, and that adds another layer of complexity into the whole blood sugar control game. As you can see in this graphic, proteins don't raise glucose immediately. They only really raise your blood sugar a few hours after you eat them. But despite that, my hack number 6 is add protein on your plate. Why? Because protein provides a slow release of glucose. It will prevent those sharp spikes from carb-heavy meals that are the most harmful. When you add protein, you will have a more balanced meal and a more balanced blood sugar. Now, going back to our chickpea food label, this actually looks quite good because it does have 5 grams of protein per serving. But be careful, because just like with the carbs, there are good proteins and bad proteins. I personally prefer lean proteins, so things like beans, lentil, chicken breast, or the kind of protein we can find in eggs, seafood, and fish. Now, having said all this, we need to be mindful of that delayed blood sugar spike caused by proteins. Especially if you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, you might want to take that into account. We already covered carbs and protein, but I want to quickly dive into the world of fats. Fats on their own have minimal impact on your blood sugar, but don't skip this part, because they do play a crucial role in the overall blood sugar control game. As you can see in this graphic, fats don't immediately convert into glucose and don't spike blood sugar like carbs do. They're providing a very steady and slow release of energy. This stability can be a game changer in maintaining consistent blood sugar levels. Fats play the role of traffic cops in our digestive system. Picture this: you've got a mix of carbs, proteins, and fats on your plate. Fats are the one who step in and say, "Hey carbs, hold on, you're moving too fast," and they slow down that blood sugar spike. So blood sugar hack number 5, your doctor probably doesn't know, is that adding a moderate amount of healthy fats on your plate can help achieve a more stable blood sugar. The kinds of fats I consume most often are of course the minimally processed ones. Things like avocado, nuts, salmon, Greek yogurt, things like that. Or extra virgin olive oil, of course. But I try to keep the healthy fats in moderation and not overdo it. The reason why is that I noticed if I eat too much fats, then my insulin sensitivity is not that good. And when I eat the meal that's heavy in carbs and heavy in fats at the same time, and the prime example of this is pizza, my blood sugar will keep rising even a few hours after I eat it, and it will not go down for a very long time. And this is pretty much impossible to handle for any kind of type 2 or pre-diabetic body, and very challenging for me as an insulin dependent diabetic, because although I can inject myself with insulin externally, it's very difficult to get the timing right. I also try to stay away from any kind of heavily processed trans fats, including in many fried foods, and I also don't like too many deli meats and cheeses, which have a lot of saturated fat, and again, I don't like that negative impact of these items on my insulin sensitivity. Moving on to another blood sugar hack your doctor probably doesn't know. And we need to bring another component of your meal into conversation: fiber. Fiber, just like fat, has minimal effect on your blood sugar levels on its own, but it does play a crucial role in the overall blood sugar control game. The reason why is not only that fiber is the kind of carbohydrate that your body can't digest, so it doesn't spike blood sugar, but foods rich in soluble fiber make you feel full, plus they will act as another cop, slowing the traffic in your digestive system and slowing down that blood sugar spike from the other carbs. So hack number 4 is add more fiber to your meals. Now, going back to our chickpea food label, if you still remember it, this chickpea starts looking even better now, because it does have 5 grams of fiber per serving. But there are even better fiber-rich meals I would recommend you to look into: leafy greens, spinach, kale, rucola, and as you might know, my absolute favorite source of fiber is a healthy chia seed pudding, made simply of chia seeds, plant-based milk, cacao powder, and some fresh low GI fruits like berries. This is the only dessert I can eat all day long and still keep my blood sugar in a perfect range. I'm sure your doctor didn't know that. Now, if the hacks so far have been too healthy for you, we're gonna spice things up a little bit and talk about some hacks on how to eat the bad carbs with high glycemic index. Things like bread, pasta, or potatoes, there really is a way how you can do it. But before we get to it, I just want to let you know that I have a Patreon community, and if you join, you can chat with me one-on-one and you can watch bonus content. I respond to all questions from my patrons, and I'm happy to share all my experience, everything I learned during the 35 years I lived with diabetes. Places are limited. I currently have about 10 spots left, so feel free to join while you still can. Now, here are the bonus hacks on how to eat foods with high glycemic index. Let's start with bread. There has been a study done that proved that you can reduce the blood sugar spike from white bread by freezing it and toasting it. Toasting alone reduced the post-meal blood sugar spike in healthy individuals by 25%. Freezing and defrosting by 31%, and freezing followed by toasting the bread reduced the post-meal blood sugar by 39%. I tried it and it seems to be working. My blood sugar goes up a lot less when I freeze and toast the bread before I eat it. So I approve. Now, there is another hack that has been proven to work with pasta, potatoes, or rice, all notoriously known high GI foods. When you cook these staples, you should always cook them al dente. Let them cool down and place them in a fridge. This step is super important because the cooling process will create resistant starch, which is similar to fiber and slows down digestions of the carbs. I tried this too and it seems to be working very well as well. I could even reheat the pasta and reheat the potatoes and still see the improvement in my post-meal blood sugar. Now, a quick reality check. Am I saying that now you know this hack, you should start eating white bread, white rice, and things like that? Absolutely not. Whenever I pick these staples, I always go for whole grain version of bread or pasta or rice, because I know these have a lot of more fiber and are a lot more blood sugar friendly on their own. In fact, if you got too comfortable and already thinking about eating these high GI foods, this next hack will definitely make you uncomfortable. And again, your doctor might have dropped this exercise regularly bomb on you, but did they actually tell you what kind of exercise you should do and why? Well, the reason why exercise is such a game changer is that whenever you start working out, your muscles need energy. They run out of energy very fast and they start asking for more. And the next thing your body will do is start pulling glucose from your blood and your blood sugar will go down. So the fastest way to lower blood glucose is to engage more muscles. Running, swimming, or even walking is excellent for this. And I can assure you that no medication will bring your blood sugar down as fast as a good full body exercise. Another reason why exercise is so powerful is that it can improve your insulin sensitivity and your body will be able to use insulin more efficiently in the long run, no matter if the insulin was produced by your pancreas or injected externally. But what doesn't work for me is a really high intensity exercise, like fast sprints or lifting very heavy weights. Whenever I do these, my body starts producing stress hormones like adrenaline, and these will start releasing glucose from my liver, which will start bringing my blood sugar up. And that's probably not what most of you want. So just be careful about those. Another thing I need to be super careful about when I exercise is that my blood sugar doesn't go too low. And this can happen when I have active insulin on board while exercising, which I injected earlier. Because when I contract those muscles, that insulin, which is already in my body, will get to bloodstream much faster, and that can cause hypoglycemia. That's why I try not to exercise a few hours after I took any kind of pre-meal insulin. Oh, and I also suspend my basal insulin delivery on my insulin pump at least an hour before I start exercising. Plus, having glucose tablets on you whenever you exercise, if you're an insulin dependent diabetic, is always a good idea. For me, it's a must. Moving on to another blood sugar hack your doctor probably doesn't know. And this one might sound like a complete opposite to the intermittent fasting. And it kind of is, but I'm trying to give you options here because I know everyone is different. And I let you decide which options you want to try. Or if you don't want to try any of them, that's totally fine too. So blood sugar hack number 2. Eat smaller portions. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that because I think you need to lose weight. Not at all. Where I'm coming from is that the bigger the meal is, the bigger mistake you can make when trying to calculate or estimate the carb count. And especially if you are an insulin-dependent diabetic like me, the insulin dose that you take is directly dependent on the carb count. When you eat a big meal and you make a big mistake in your carb calculation, then your blood sugar might go up big as well. And of course, smaller portions might help solve part of the problem. Another blood sugar hack my doctor never mentioned to me is such a game changer, especially if your blood sugar graph looks like a roller coaster or if you're completely lost. You see, getting the carb count right and calculating the insulin dose right for any meal is a very complex task. I absolutely don't blame anyone who doesn't get it right every time. I don't get it right every time either. But there is a way to do it right. And a great opportunity to learn what different foods do to your blood sugar is to eat simple meals that consist only of 1 or 2 items. Let's take an apple for example. If you eat an apple as a non-diabetic, your blood sugar graph will probably look something like this, going up for about an hour and then going back down. If you're an insulin-dependent diabetic like me, you need to take insulin with every meal. And in this case, eating simple meals like an apple can help you tremendously to figure out what the right dose of insulin is for that one apple and what the right timing of that insulin should be for that one apple. I personally take about 1 unit of insulin about 15 minutes before I eat an average apple, and it works perfectly for me. My blood sugar is almost flat line when I do it like this. But everyone is different, so you need to figure out what works for you. Once you figure out the right dose and the right timing of insulin for the most simple foods, then you can move to more complex meals and you will feel more comfortable in figuring out the insulin dose. And that's why the key to really hack your blood sugar is eating more simple meals and keeping a journal to learn about your body. Writing down what you eat, writing down how much medication you take and when, and writing down any kind of physical activity. And there are many apps that help you do that these days, but I kind of like the old way. Pen and paper. Many of you have booked a coaching session with me before, and we always end up having a more productive discussion whenever you have some sort of journal or notes available that we can look at to better understand your blood sugar. Now, we talked about a lot of different strategies and hacks that your doctor might not have told you about, but we didn't really talk about my favorite blood sugar friendly foods. And I think this is a super important thing to focus on, blood sugar friendly foods. So if you want me to share my top favorite 25 diabetes superfoods with you, just click on this video and watch it next. I will see you there and tell you everything about it. Ciao!